The radical act of self preservation. Why Black excellence requires putting yourself first. Thank you for being here today. I'm truly honored to stand before you to share transformative insights that have fundamentally changed how I understand resilience, self care, and collective empowerment in professional spaces. These revelations came through my profound conversation with Patrice Barlow, a visionary leader whose work has become nothing short of revolutionary for Black professionals across America. Patrice isn't just another consultant or career coach. She is a force of nature who has dedicated her life to dismantling systems that exhaust Black talent while building frameworks that nurture sustainable success. Her methodologies have transformed entire organizational cultures and saved countless careers from the burnout that so often claims our brightest minds. What makes Patrice extraordinary is her ability to name what many feel but cannot articulate. That the conventional paths to success are often designed for those who don't carry the additional weight of being the first or the only in their workplaces. We've all heard the narrative: success requires sacrifice, push harder, sleep less, do more. This message is particularly toxic for Black professionals who already navigate workplaces that weren't designed with their well being in mind. But what if this conventional wisdom is fundamentally flawed? What if the path to sustainable success and meaningful impact actually requires us to prioritize ourselves first? This is the counterintuitive truth that emerged from my conversation with Patrice Barlow. Today, I want to challenge the notion that self sacrifice is the price of achievement, especially for those who have historically been marginalized in professional spaces. Let's begin with a radical proposition. Self care is not selfish, it is not a luxury. For Black professionals and caregivers striving for balance, self care is absolutely non negotiable for sustained success. When we talk about rising with grace, as Patrice so eloquently frames it, we acknowledge a fundamental truth. Our strength to support family and community starts with intentional care for ourselves, mind, body, and soul. This isn't indulgence, it's the foundation of resilience. Consider the airline safety demonstration we've all heard. Put on your own oxygen mask before assisting others. This isn't just practical advice for air travel, it's a powerful metaphor for life. Yet, how many of us, particularly those conditioned to care for others first, consistently ignore this wisdom? The consequences of neglecting self care are profound and far reaching: burnout, health complications, diminished effectiveness, resentment. These aren't just personal challenges, they represent a collective loss of potential innovation and leadership that our communities and organizations desperately need. Let me share with you the story of Tanjra Rouse, whose journey powerfully illustrates this principle. As a Black woman leader, Tanjra faced immense pressure to excel in every domain simultaneously while supporting others' expectations, a recipe for burnout without proper boundaries or self awareness. Early career success catapulted Tanjra into leadership roles before she felt fully prepared emotionally or spiritually. The weight of being the first or the only in many spaces created additional pressure to perform flawlessly. The unspoken message was clear: you must be twice as good to get half as far, and you cannot afford to show weakness. But Tanjra made a courageous choice. She adopted practices of honest self assessment, sought mentorship intentionally, and most radically, prioritized her well being alongside her ambition. This wasn't easy in environments that often reward constant availability and self sacrifice. Yet, by recalibrating her priorities toward holistic growth over perfectionism, Tanjra developed stronger leadership capacity rooted in authenticity. The outcome? She achieved more sustainable work life integration instead of constant overextension. More importantly, she became an advocate and mentor, helping other women honor their own unique journeys without shame or comparison traps. Her example has helped shift workplace cultures toward more humane expectations around pace and growth among underrepresented leaders. This brings me to the second critical insight from my conversation with Patrice Barlow. Community breaks isolation and fuels empowerment. Isolation is a silent tax on Black professionals. The emotional labor of navigating spaces where you're underrepresented, the pressure to code switch, the burden of representing an entire group. These experiences can be profoundly isolating. When faced alone, they drain the very energy needed to thrive and lead. But what happens when we create intentional spaces where stories can be shared openly and honestly? Something remarkable occurs. As Patrice emphasized, building these spaces transforms trauma into triumph by validating experiences, fostering healing, and creating networks of support. You're never alone on this journey. Connection is your parachute. Letitia Clark's story perfectly embodies this principle. Letitia founded the Pink Parachute Diaries podcast as a safe space amplifying authentic stories from Black women navigating professional life. She noticed a disturbing pattern. Talented Black women were often let go, handed pink slips, while less qualified peers advanced. This pattern was compounded by silence and isolation, with each woman believing her experience was unique or somehow her fault. Witnessing repeated injustice in corporate settings motivated Letitia to break these cycles of isolation through collective truth telling. She created an uncensored storytelling platform where vulnerability was honored rather than penalized. The podcast fostered community healing, validated experiences, and inspired listeners facing similar struggles. The impact has been profound. The Pink Parachute Diaries has built a growing listener base and received testimonials from women who felt seen and heard for the first time. More significantly, it has sparked wider conversations about equity in workplaces nationwide and modeled how collective narratives can drive systemic change. As Patrice often says, when we share our stories, we not only heal ourselves, but create roadmaps for others. This is the revolutionary power of community. It transforms individual struggles into collective wisdom and action. The third insight I gained from Patrice Barlow addresses a dimension of resilience that's often overlooked. Financial resilience requires openness to learning. Financial challenges can destabilize even the strongest among us. Yet, discussions about money remain taboo in many communities, particularly those historically excluded from wealth building opportunities. The result? Critical knowledge gaps that perpetuate vulnerability. Embracing a mindset of continuous learning about financial health equips us to weather storms and empowers us and those around us to transition confidently into new chapters in life. Your willingness to learn what you don't know today gets you ready for tomorrow. Julie Craig's advocacy work powerfully demonstrates this principle. Julie focuses on addressing racial discrimination against Black professionals by leveraging data and documentation within organizations. She confronts persistent inequity, pay gaps, promotion barriers, and the emotional labor required to justify one's presence and value at work, all compounded by the lack of formal support structures within companies. Rather than suffering alone, Julie organized peer groups focused on documenting incidents collectively. She provided training and resources so colleagues could advocate effectively together rather than individually. This approach led to greater accountability from HR departments and increased awareness that prompted some firms to revise policies and practices, benefiting broader employee bases, not only those directly involved in cases. Julie drew inspiration from her own setbacks after being repeatedly overlooked despite top performance reviews. Instead of internalizing these experiences, she turned frustration into fuel for systemic change efforts across industries. She facilitated workshops reaching hundreds nationwide and helped secure policy changes, improving equity metrics year over year at several partner organizations. Her work demonstrates that individual resilience plus communal action can shift deeply entrenched systems, inspiring others beyond immediate circles. As Patrice notes, financial literacy isn't just about personal security, it's about creating generational change and collective power. These three insights, prioritizing self care, building community, and embracing financial learning, form a powerful framework for resilience. But they also challenge deeply held beliefs about success, particularly for those from marginalized communities. We've been taught that sacrifice is noble, that asking for help shows weakness, that discussing money is inappropriate. These narratives serve to maintain systems that benefit from our exhaustion, isolation, and financial vulnerability. Rejecting them is not just personal healing, it's revolutionary action. When Black professionals prioritize self care, they challenge the exploitation that has historically devalued Black bodies and labor. When they build intentional communities, they reject the divide and conquer tactics that have limited collective power. When they pursue financial literacy and advocate for equity, they disrupt generational patterns of economic exclusion. This is why Patrice Barlow's work is so profoundly important. She's not just offering strategies for individual success, she's providing a blueprint for collective liberation. I want to leave you with this. The most radical act of resistance in a world that expects your exhaustion is to fiercely protect your peace. In spaces that profit from your isolation, building community becomes an act of revolution. In systems designed to keep you financially vulnerable, pursuing knowledge becomes a declaration of independence. Tomorrow, when you wake up, I challenge you to commit one revolutionary act of self preservation. Whether it's setting a boundary that honors your capacity, reaching out to create connection where isolation exists, or dedicating time to understand a financial concept that's always intimidated you, choose one action that affirms your right to thrive, not just survive. Because when we rise with grace, when we refuse to accept burnout as the price of success, we don't just change our own lives, we create ripples that transform our workplaces, our communities, and ultimately our world. The time for martyrdom is over. The era of sustainable excellence has begun. Thank you.